Hey everyone, welcome to a Grim Dawn skill overview video guide. In this video, we are going over Mortar Trap, a high-level demolition stability that could be quite explosive. So the text for Mortar Trap reads, places a mortar that will continuously lob explosives into the air until depleted. The trap scales with player damage bonuses. So Mortar Trap, you throw down a single trap that acts as a turret. It fires a fireball straight up in the air that drops down on enemies. It targets pretty much randomly, and it can be a little unreliable and a little finicky, but it can actually be a really powerful ability that's easily worked into most builds, given that you just set it and forget it. Looking at the box here, the stat box for this character's Mortar Trap, he doesn't actually have a lot of points in the Mortar Trap itself. The Mortar Trap, it'll fire a mortar. It'll target a small area and has a big radius. It deals physical and fire damage. So if you're converting physical damage to elemental damage, you can actually get elemental damage more on this. Same thing with other types of physical to particular damage conversions. You can get these to be fire aether mortars, vitality aether mortar, or vitality aether fire elemental mortars. You can pretty much use any elemental in here with the conversion. Or if you're geared towards physical, you can work this into a physical build. The middle ability is Heavy Ordnance. Potent Sorcery increases the damage output of mortar shells and infuses them with electrical damage. This adds lightning damage onto each mortar shot, increases the physical and fire damages by %, and adds a chance to stun for 1 second. Heavy Ordnance allows you to integrate this ability into lightning builds much more easily, so it works great in, say, the Shaman Demolitionist combo that I've actually been running on the channel for a while now. The third part of the ability is called the Big One. Loads the Mortar Trap with a devastating bomb known only as the Big One, which will fire towards the beginning of the trap's barrage. The resulting colossal explosion will leave your enemy shell-shocked if they survive at all. So the Big One is a giant explosion that deals a crap ton of physical and fire damage and slows targets that survive. So the Big One will be fired at around shot 3 to 5 in the Mortar Trap's lifespan. Now, that doesn't sound that optimal, but the Big One actually deals a lot of damage over a huge area. It's about the radius of a good Electrus Flash Freeze. I personally like the Big One. I like that it does fire kind of into the Mortar Trap's timing, so you can't spam your Mortar Traps with a high amount of cooldown. But with just a teeny amount of cooldown, or no cooldown at all, actually, about the time the Big One goes off is about the time you can load in another Mortar Trap. So the Big One is actually a good ability for timing your Mortar Traps when you want to refresh the Big One and refresh your Mortar Trap. In-class synergies. I mean, the obvious one to me is Thermite Mines. Because Thermite Mines, you'll throw that out, you'll weaken enemies towards the 2 damages that the Mortar Trap is going to be dealing. Obviously not the physical part, but you'll get the fire and lightning in there. And I think that's what really counts when you're building a Mortar Trap build. But, I mean, pretty much everything in the Demolitionist tree will combine with Mortar Trap. Because the Demolitionist, like, not only does it have a lot of damages, most of them will sync up across all the abilities. So you got physical on there, so you can combine it with Granado, and since Granado has piercing, you can combine that with Canister Bomb. Oh, and they all have fire, and they can all have, well, at least 2 of them can have lightning. The lightning can combine with the stun jacks. You can be using Fire Strike and throw down Mortar Traps. You can be using Blackwater Cocktail, throw down Mortar Traps. Flame Touch is great for this ability because the increased fire and lightning damages and the increased offensive ability will scale up the Mortar Trap's damage and crit rate because it scales with your bonuses. You can also use Temper to both bolster your defenses, but also increase the physical damage the mortar deals. So outclass synergies, the first place I would go if I were building around Mortar Trap, the first place I went because I built around Mortar Trap, is the Shaman. And with the Shaman, I think it's a great combination to work in Wind Devils and Storm Totem. Because Heavy Ordnance is lightning damage, and these two abilities, Wind Devils and Storm Totem, are both lightning damage based, they synergize well together. And because they're all sort of artillery, they work great together. They work really, really great together, because you can throw out your Storm Totems with your Wind Devils, and because your Wind Devils are actually going to help you slow targets, and they're going to be dealing damage to targets with like Maelstrom and weakening resistances with Raging Tempest, and you just got the extra damage of Storm Totem that you're probably just walking enemies through, your Mortar Trap is going to add to that damage. And Thermite Mines, Mortar Trap, Storm Totem, and Wind Devils all synergize really, really great together. And that type of build has been just wrecking Ultimate for me. So I highly recommend, if you're going to build Mortar Trap, that you work in the other artillery abilities with it. Not to jump into items early, but the other synergy, outclass synergy with Mortar Trap, specifically the big one, is in the Arcanist tree, and that's Devastation. Devastation and Mortar Trap, especially with the big one, and the Apocalypse ability off of the Herald of the Apocalypse amulet, mean you can just fill the screen with explosions, and it's pretty funny, actually. The Arcanist also has some fire abilities that work pretty well, that synergize pretty well with Mortar Trap, like Albrecht's Aether Ray, Reckless Power, and Overload, the middle parts of Iskander's Elemental Exchange. And of course, Inner Focus. But Inner Focus synergizes with everything, really. For Devotion, I don't know that I'd actually assign anything to Mortar Trap. In the sort of build that is going to end up using Mortar Trap, I think there are better abilities to assign Devotion skills to. But if you have an open Devotion skill that you need to assign to something, there are a couple options. Reckless Tempest immediately jumps to mind, because even though Thermite Mines, I think, activate this on a stupid broken level, I think Mortar Trap would work just fine as an ability to activate the Reckless Tempest. Since Thermite Mines can't be used with Meteor Shower anymore, Mortar Trap is an option. Should you go down the Eldritch Chaos line to get Meteor Shower. I also think that Fissure would work pretty well with Mortar Trap, given that they're both fire abilities, and they're both like heavily artillery-based abilities. And maybe you could also use Elemental Storm, though Elemental Storm, I think, works better on other abilities. You more want it on abilities that you're going to be casting a lot, or that can hit a lot of things, so you can get the debuff on a lot of enemies. But again, if you have this as an open ability and need a place to put it, you can put it on Mortar Trap. And I think that's actually going to cover the Devotion stuff, because, like I said, I'd rather put Devotion abilities on other skills rather than Mortar Trap. Mortar Trap is more of like an added damage artillery piece. So aside from the Herald of Apocalypse amulet I mentioned, I can't really think of any major equipment that works with Mortar Trap. It's more equipment that works with the build that would want Mortar Trap. And that is the Light's Defender set. Light's Defender is more for Stunjacks and Storm Totem, but Light's Defender plus Thermite Mine, Stunjacks, Storm Totem, Mortar Trap, Wind Devils, it's kind of an amazing combination, because you also get the Storm Shard turret, I guess you would call it. The Storm Shard is like a Lightning Nova producing turret, and that combines well with pretty much all of the other artillery this build has. And then beyond that, you pretty much just want fire lightning gear. So something like Skybreach Bulwark. You'll get +1 to your Mortar Trap and Heavy Ordnance and the big one out of this shield. Otherwise, Mortar Trap does not have any sort of specific set for it, and specific gearing for it is more limited. Okay, so that's going to cover Mortar Trap, the Demolitionist ability. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time for another Grim Dawn skill overview video guide.